No, you are not dreaming. 2025 will be the last year of John Cena in wrestling. He announced that he will be doing a major farewell tour from January to December, and after that, it's safe to say we won't see Mr. You Can't See anymore. What would I like him to do for his last year? What are my expectations? What pitfalls should be avoided in my opinion? Make yourself comfortable, grab a coffee, and let's discuss all of this together.
You are on the Wrestling Paradise.
Sharing my hopes and fears for Cena's final tour. Let's go.
If you want some, hurry up and come get some!
Before anything else, I would like to briefly talk about my relationship with John Cena, but I must still emphasize that I have no hatred towards Cena, only total respect. There are aspects that I like a little less, but I think that's the case for many wrestling fans, and then there are aspects that I really like. So, what aspects do I really like about John Cena? Specifically, I appreciate the fact that he has, at least in his best versions, been a true star, someone charismatic, with an aura, a larger-than-life quality that I love. It's no longer necessary to remind anyone. Regulars know well that I adore everything that is larger than life, and credible wrestlers who inspire motivation and strength, and John Cena embodies all of that. His military side, his mentality, which is very inspiring, really very inspiring. John Cena is an example in life, I think. In terms of resilience and perseverance, never give up has been his great mantra for years. How can one not be inspired by him, I want to say. I still have in mind, of course, his superb rivalry with Randy Orton in 2009, particularly the famous I Quit match against Orton, which is somewhat of a symbol of that never give up mentality. I have other matches in mind, so here and there I could mention some that left an impression on me. For example, the one against AJ Styles at SummerSlam 2016 really stood out to me. Then there was also the period when he was champion with his long reign around 2006-2007, where I remember a rivalry against Bobby Lashley that was great. Of course, the favorite opponent, Randy Orton. There were matches galore. I also have in mind, of course, the Iron Man match from Bragging Rights 2009. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. A classic and truly a masterpiece with everything one can hope for and expect from a wrestling match. This match is really great. And Cena, without a doubt, has really been involved in a lot of rivalries and storylines that I loved. And it's important to remember that there are still aspects of John Cena that I have liked less over time. Of course, when he had that rivalry against Umaga, the bulldozer that I love. And unfortunately, he completely buried him. He did the same with Great Khali. Unfortunately, this is one of the negative attributes of John Cena over the years, which he lost, coincidentally, when he realized he was going to pursue a career in Hollywood more now, and that he didn't have to preserve his spots as much anymore. And he really had less reason to do everything to stay on top alone around 2015. At that moment, coincidentally, he started to highlight many more people. But hey, at least he did it. Not everyone can say that. There are some wrestlers I'm thinking of, certain blondes with a mustache, who for much longer showcased very few people. Even though he did it too, Hulk Hogan did it as well. In short, let's not get sidetracked. I find that John Cena has this somewhat nice aspect of wrestlers. Even though he has denied it, it is true that he earned the place he had through hard work, effort, charisma, and extraordinary ability on the microphone. It's still important to remind everyone that he didn't steal anything at all. However, there are also creative decisions behind it, so we can never forgive him for burying the Nexus at SummerSlam 2010. That might be John Cena's greatest crime, which he even regretted later. And it was really there was his influence, and that was really in very poor taste. Because of that, there is a generation of new wrestlers who were eager to enter through the big door at WWE and achieve great things, which ultimately turned out to be not much. I am particularly thinking of Wade Barrett, whom I adore and who may have had the greatest potential. I also think of Ryback, who was in Nexus under the name Skip Sheffield, and believe it or not, he has still become something afterwards. But all this to say that John Cena also has a somewhat dark side, but still, total respect for the wrestler, total respect for his journey. But still, one nuance that I bring up, which I believe will have an influence in this famous last year, in 2025, is that if we take stock since, let's say 2020, which will make, let's say, at the time he returns to really start his last year, the last 5 years of his wrestling career, I want to nickname it the Grand Slam of Defeat, the Stride of Losing. It's true, look, in 2020, he returned, and that he couldn't have expected. There is a health context that has arisen, which we are well aware of, but he still lost, at least if we can call it a match, the Firefly Funhouse match against the late Bray Wyatt. And he still lost it, but still I think he comes out of it stronger, because there's another one, Bray Wyatt, unfortunately, whom he buried, or at least whom he beat at a time when he should have let him win. I was obviously thinking about WrestleMania 30, the first Bray Wyatt against John Cena, and in a way, he still came out of it having elevated Bray. A bit late, but he still did it. Then we see him again for the famous Summer of Cena 2021 and his match against Roman Reigns. So, while I have an excellent memory of that match and that rivalry, even if it wasn't perfect, I remember that you already had Finn Balor and even Baron Corbin in the mix. You had no business being there. On the other hand, the promos, purely the promos, even though there weren't enough for my taste, between Roman and John Cena, were great. I really liked them. And I just regret that, let's say, at certain moments it was still a little bit simple. I remember that at that time, in the rivalry with Roman, he would say, "One, all I need is 1, 2, 3. It was repeated a lot. One side of John Cena that I don't like too much, from what I can also recall, is his childish side, his very PG side. So, do we want him to be like that? It's very possible. He is still the face of WWE, his politically correct version, so it's true that when it comes to being a heavy kid, he is somewhat of a specialist, but he has also been able, many times in his career, to be very credible, very intense, and very serious. Royal Rumble 2008, with his superb t-shirt, his outfit that was magnificent, black and orange, really great, and that's why we can say that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with John Cena. In short, there was this rivalry against Roman Reigns. Well, he ended up getting beaten in the end, but there was still some suspense, especially because during his entrance, I remember seeing on his graphic elements that reminded us he had matched Ric Flair's record a few years ago, the famous 16th World Championship title, which basically only Ric Flair and he have achieved in history, which is still a huge accomplishment, but therefore he had many things that suggested he might have the passport to go beat Flair's record. And that's why there was still some suspense, but well, Roman still massacred him. And then, to summarize what has been significant since basically SummerSlam 2021, we could mention that he returned at the end of 2022 to face Roman in a tag team match once again. It was a matter of having at least one match in 2022 because he told us that he had a match every year in WWE for a very long time, and it really felt like that was the purpose. But what we can highlight about Markan next is that he did face Austin Theory at WrestleMania 39, WrestleMania Hollywood, a rivalry for which he had returned. I remember a promo where he really buried Austin Theory, who didn't come out of it looking good at all. But well, it was a bit of the John Cena challenge, I would say. Either Austin Theory had to step up and prove himself worthy of the leader of the C Nation in terms of promo, or he would fail the test and it would be over. And I remember that match, WrestleMania 39, I feel that it brought nothing to the table. Not only do I remember that it was a cowardly booking, as I like to call it, where Theory wins, but it's not legit at all, and Cena still comes out looking very strong. Moreover, I had completely hated, and that was already the case in reality. Since 2021, the physique of John Cena, when you're used to the muscle machine he has been for years, tanned as well, and you see him much paler and much thinner, you think, if it's to come back in a lousy version, don't come back, John. Stay at home. Because he said it himself, that he had taken up yoga, that he had also had to lose some weight, well, weight from all the muscle mass for Hollywood, and that he himself found it looked better on screen when he was slimmer, let's say. That's his opinion. But we could still respond by saying, well, look at the highest paid and most successful actor in the world, The Rock. There's almost no one more muscular than him as an actor. So yeah, he has the right. We respect John's choice. And so, he has this physique that, in my opinion, is deteriorating, and this version of himself is really just a shadow of what he once was. And I told myself from that moment on, if it's to see him like this again, he might as well not come back, John Cena. And that's it. For me, the disconnect I felt when he returned in the fall of 2023. What made me chuckle a bit is that some were saying, yeah, John Cena, despite being a legend, his career, his busy schedule, is still here to offer us great things with the bloodline, in this case, etc., etc. He had therefore been involved in the fall. Well, nothing really remarkable in a one-on-one match, even though to my great regret, I was really expecting a Roman against Cena 2 at the time. Well, not 2, rather 3, if we consider the one they had in 2017 at No Mercy, which WWE had seemingly made everyone forget when they faced off at SummerSlam 2021. But personally, I haven't forgotten. They had already faced each other, so in reality, it would have been a third. In short, all this to say that it made me chuckle a bit when some people said, "Oh, John Cena, what generosity," when it was the writer's strike in Hollywood and he simply had nothing to do. And he came back for that, by the way. He also came back because at that moment we know Roman Reigns was taking a little break. Roman Reigns being a part-timer himself, and on that, it's true that I have already expressed my frustrations about it, even if we shouldn't forget that Roman Reigns is a human being with a family life, with health concerns, and given everything he has already given to WWE and the fans, we can't blame him for suddenly wanting to be close to his loved ones and taking care of his health, let's say. For a month or two, it's certain that in parallel, it's as if he was holding the title he had a bit hostage, which is a shame. But the fact is, I was also thinking that since Roman isn't here, they're bringing back a real star like Roman in the meantime, which is an admission of powerlessness regarding the rest of the roster. Actually, from WWE's side, since whenever Roman is not around, they bring back Cena. At least that was the impression at the time, especially with the writer's strike. In short, let's get to the point. I really haven't liked what we've seen from John Cena since 2020. Physically, even in terms of storyline, I really liked the rivalry against Roman, yes. I really liked the promo he did with Austin Theory, the fact that he remains one of the enemies of the bloodline, which we saw at WrestleMania 40. We remember that he intervened in the storyline against Cody too, and he intervened before taking a powerful rock bottom from the final boss, The Rock. He is still one of the adversaries of the bloodline. In short, this is basically where we stand with John Cena at the dawn of what we can say is his last year in wrestling. And I will directly address the concerns that arise for me. You will have understood I am not a fan at all of his look since he has been in Hollywood. Let's not even talk about his hair, which is a disaster. However, once again in all of this, I am not judging. I am also very aware that John Cena is a human being who is aging and losing his hair, which happens to some men. And so, I can't criticize him for his physique either, as it might not be his fault. And despite everything, as a fan, I don't like seeing a much skinnier white-haired version than before. That's why my concern, / my fear, / my great expectation for 2025, and he will have had all the necessary time I think to prepare for it, is that John Cena, in honor of his legendary career, in honor of all the great and respectable things he has done in wrestling, comes back to us in the shape of his life. So maybe it won't be, let's say, really the absolute best possible version, but at least a version that comes close. I'm not asking for much. So, it's true that it requires going to the gym, working hard, having a whole discipline, and a lifestyle that is really very, let's say, demanding in a certain way to get there. But anyway, I would really like to see Cena in any case. That's what I hope for in 2025. A more muscular Cena, all his latest appearances, a more tanned Cena, a Cena who returns with shorter hair. I think long hair doesn't suit him at all. It's a bit like the hair reflects the person. And it's true that since he has had longer hair, what Cena is doing is really underwhelming. In short, another expectation as well as a study for 2025. As I said, he still ended up with the loss, at least when it mattered the most. I have in mind, of course, Roman Reigns at SummerSlam 2021, Austin Theory at WrestleMania 39, which represent two very significant defeats. Very significant, it's true. And it's still something that worries me. I think to myself, John Cena can basically be presented as the GOAT, the greatest of all time, which is still marketing nonsense to me. But I understand, since they need to hype up everyone who is still around, and WWE has every interest in presenting him as the greatest of all time, which he is not in my eyes. He is part of it, yes, But for me, there isn't just one greatest of all time. Moreover, Randy Orton shares the same opinion. He also believes that you cannot designate a single greatest of all time and that it is purely subjective. It's about which ones, let's say, resonate with you the most, with whom you connect the most, but you can't say that someone is the greatest. That's why all of this is pure WWE marketing, and one must, let's say, read between the lines. In short, while John Cena may be presented as the greatest of all time and somewhat resting on his status, it remains true that he has been on a losing streak for years and is entering this final year of 2025 with a credibility that is really almost in the gutter, I would say. And this needs to be corrected as soon as possible, and we shouldn't be treated like fools by having him suddenly beat everyone, when for years, when it wasn't yet his last year, and he was much less in the spotlight than he will be now, he could lose without it being a problem. We shouldn't be treated like fools, so my concern is how John Cena will have credibility for big matches when in 2023 he lost to Austin Theory at WrestleMania. By the way, what has that brought to Austin Theory in the meantime? So it's not John Cena's fault, but I feel like it was a bit of a match for nothing, even though it's supposed to highlight a young talent from the new generation. In short, I'm still quite negative about this. I would also like to mention one last thing that worries me for 2025 regarding John Cena. I'm afraid that everything will unfold without any story, since it's a bit of a tour. In fact, he has apparently provided a list to WWE of opponents he would like to face in 2025, according to the latest news. Moreover, it should be noted that he will apparently perform 36 shows in 2025, including the Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, and WrestleMania. So, we can consider that he will have a rivalry at WrestleMania, which will be part of the road to WrestleMania, and he might also be one of the faces of WWE on Netflix, which I think would be ideal. Might as well put all the biggest names on Netflix to generate maximum interest from Netflix viewers. In short, especially since he has also had this notoriety as an actor for a few years, it's ideal for Netflix. The fact is that I am afraid that the concept of touring with a list of opponents that must be lined up in 2025 will encourage more of what WWE does too much, to my great regret, which is matches. We're chaining matches, we're chaining super matches, it's awesome, everyone is happy, this is awesome, holy shit, it's great, except that I hate it. I vomit all of that, even though, well, I exaggerate a bit. Let's say there are positive things in it. There is the aspect that can be spectacular, entertaining. When you're there and you see the show live, you have a good time, and you're also happy to see John Cena in action. But purely what we will remember in the long term is more about the emotions, the stories, the rivalries, and the promos than the matches. In any case, that's what I hope. And I fear that the fact of lining up opponents like this for a year, which will likely happen, will encourage WWE not to really tell a story, other than the story that this is John Cena's last big tour, and that we are being offered one last batch, as one might call them, of matches before they disappear. If we don't take care at all, and don't make the effort to really incorporate more psychological and deeper storylines, I fear that everything will unfold without any real substance. On the other hand, these are my great hopes for 2025. There is no shortage of potential rivalries and potentially exciting matches for John Cena, that's for sure. This has been his great quality throughout his career for me. Name someone who doesn't go well with John Cena at all. Honestly, I would be surprised if you could name several. Maybe one, but seriously, John Cena gets along with everyone. He has chemistry with everyone, with all the biggest names, and even with young talents with a wide range of different profiles. You can put him with big men. You can put him with more acrobatic and high-flying guys. You can put him against big names, there's no problem. And that's why I think looking at Cena's profile, there are plenty of things he can do in 2025. So obviously my great hope, and that of the Viper himself, is to have one last Cena-Orton. It's true, how can we not have John Cena face Randy Orton one last time? At least, how can we not have John Cena versus Randy Orton one last time? It's a must. It's a must. It has to happen. After that, it's the circumstances that raise questions for me. I think that Orton and Cena might be the only two currently who could still possibly break Ric Flair's famous record of 16 World Championship titles. Cena has matched it. Orton is at 14. Is there a way by the end of 2025 to ensure that both are tied when they face each other and find a twist? Is that the most complicated part? Especially since creatively, WWE is very limited in general, particularly in recent years. So my big concern is whether they will have the intelligence in one way or another to be creative enough to play on the record of flair between Orton and Cena. If so, then I would be the happiest. This is my greatest expectation and my biggest hope for his farewell tour. And I even think that it should be the very last one in 2025. So, while I was also somewhat in favor of doing this for WrestleMania, because Cena and Orton have never faced each other at WrestleMania, which is a bit of a heresy considering how iconic this rivalry is. But on the other hand, I ask myself, who deserves to be John Cena's last opponent? Who would have the most beautiful story, basically, to be the last one to face John Cena in the ring? I think it's Randy Orton. I believe it's him. And it would be amazing. It would even be moving and truly legendary for Cena to say goodbye to wrestling and WWE. After a final match against Orton, his favorite opponent, really for me, it would be superb. And if, on top of that, there is the record of flair at stake, even better, although the problem is it's true that if we are a bit realistic, if Flair's record is at stake for Cena's last match, there is a strong chance that Orton will win, since Orton will then have the title, and if Cena has the title, he will be forced to vacate it. However, it could also be a choice to say that Cena wins the title one last time in his final match and just vacates it afterward, but at least he has broken the record, and that would also be a choice that makes sense. In any case, I hope for a Cena Orton for the record ideally, and I think it should be towards the end of 2025 for the end of the tour, or perhaps at a WrestleMania, because it's true that for me Orton is number one, but who else personally do I want to see against him? I want to see what we unfortunately didn't have in the fall of 2023, what I would have liked to see at SummerSlam 2021. What am I specifically talking about? I'm talking about a match against Roman Reigns, but not just any match. An I Quit match. That's a stipulation in which I like to see John Cena because he is Mr. Never Give Up. We remember the one against Randy Orton in 2009, an I Quit match against Roman. Can you even imagine the absolute suspense? Because Roman never gave up. Neither did Cena. At least never really tapped out or truly said I quit. At most, it can happen to pass out, but that does not mean giving up. So there would be huge suspense. I would have preferred it to happen at a time that would have benefited Roman the most at SummerSlam for me, or in the fall of 2023 to tell a new story with Cena based on who would give up first. Well, it would have been Roman who would have won, but I think that would have been the most logical. In any case, a final Roman Cena match, given their chemistry, I would sign up right away. The question is, will Cena do what he has never done throughout his career in 2025 and finally be himself? That is also a real suspense. In any case, we also remember that he had an interaction with Cody Rhodes while going backstage as he crossed paths with Cody Rhodes. There were rumors that Cody had asked him to give him a match, or at least to face each other. So I think Cody Rhodes would be the happiest to face Cena, especially considering how often he talks about him in interviews. He often mentions him as his reference John Cena, since let's not forget that when Cody started in WWE and in wrestling, John Cena was the face of WWE, the example to follow for everyone. That's why it would be very symbolic for him to face John Cena. I think it would be great if that happens, and in that case, we would have a passing of the torch between Cody Rhodes and John Cena. Even though they are not that far apart in age, there would still be a passing of the torch, which is undeniable. I find it a shame that they haven't done it already, instead of having a match against Logan Paul, which was certainly a great match. This is awesome, super. But it didn't really tell a story a few months ago at King and Queen of the Ring 2024. Instead of doing that, I think it would have been much more entertaining to have Cody Rhodes face John Cena. A bit like one of the first major tests of his reign. But anyway, let's move on. By the way, one thing I would really like him to do in 2025, as a tribute to what he was doing 10 years ago, is the John Cena Open Challenge. Perhaps his tour will be based on this concept. Maybe he will do an open challenge saying, "Come on, I'm looking for opponents, it's my farewell tour." At what point? Maybe it will work that way, and it would be a nod to the past that I would enjoy. Open challenge. And it could be that there will be matches, even weekly, based on the concept of the open challenge. Why not? Well, it's true that it's not the deepest, and it's not necessarily what leads to very, very intense rivalries. Even if we can imagine an open challenge from John Cena, and suddenly a Bronson Reed who comes in, answers the challenges, who takes down John Cena and comes out mega strong. Mega strong Bronson Reed would do him a world of good. That's all from me. We'll see what John Cena has in store for us in 2025, and let's hope it lives up to expectations, especially that my fears and concerns do not come true, and that this last year remains a magnificent farewell tour for someone who is still, after all, one of the greatest of all time.
We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?